worried, anxious group of people trying to move along. Maybe one day we'll get onto something. Until then we say, hold on. I know it's hard, but baby, you just got.
If you've got a question, just feel free to put your hand up. We'll keep everything rolling. But yeah, you're welcome to ask a question of our guest, Dr. Kola. There's one there in the back. Okay. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, is this on? Yes.
Yes,
okay, I'm Sajda. Nice to meet you, and thank you so much for sharing so much today. My question is coming from the point of a mother as well, of young girls.
Yeah.
So I wrote it down, but now I can't actually read what I wrote. So let me just try to remember. So you were talking a lot about modern medicine, and obviously understanding that so much of it has been shaped by the West, and then having to navigate now all of that information. And I think the same thing is true for ideas about feminism.
Ooh.
So. And I'm going to give an example. You talked about Lilly made the joke about our white sisters swimming with the tampons. So I want to go back to that because I know for me, like I remember my mother said, don't use a tampon, not because you're going to get pregnant, but because she had her own information about, just the cleanliness and hygiene and all of this stuff. And I remember kind of scoffing at her and also scoffing at so many things that our mothers and our grandmothers said. And now coming back and like finding out all the like toxic shock syndrome.
Yeah, sure.
The fact that tampons themselves were, invented by a white American man. So basically having to navigate all these things, right? So now I'm trying to figure out, where do we look? And I'm wondering, I'd love to know from you, where do you look for guidance about being an African woman and then having to figure out and sort where you get your ideas of feminism?
That's a great question, Sajda.
Such a good question.
That's my friend also. Now I'm on claimer.
Oh, now you love me. Now you love me, huh? I saw the shade, Lily.
I always love you, but what a brilliant question.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Sajda.
That is really, really good. I think that my definition of feminism and how I show up as a feminist has changed over the years, and I think continues to change as I grow and read more, and also now like raising children. I think that there are two main sources of truth for me in terms of how I show up as an African woman. One of those is my mom. I didn't spend that much time talking about her, but if you ever meet my mom, woo-wee, she's just a boss. Like, I'm just sometimes, like when we moved, I didn't talk about this, but there was a time I moved back to the US actually to start working at Notre Dame. And I left my kids, and it was a hard decision. And my mom was like, she was so encouraging, but she had done it before, and she'd done it 30 years ago before there were all these things. So when I reflect on everything that she has done and sacrificed, and even her ideas that I often scoffed at, as you said, when I was younger, but I really respect her. So anytime I'm kind of going through something, like she is one of the first people who I talk to about. And it's kind of funny to also hear the evolution of her own ideology and her own like navigation of feminism and the very patriarchal culture. Igbo culture is very patriarchal. So that is one of the places that I go. And then the other place is really friends of mine, like close friends of mine. Most of my friends are either, a lot of my friends are like first or second generation African immigrants. Or people who, and I'm trying to change this, but since when I'm often here, it's like folks who have gone to school in the US. And so I've spent some time in the US. So I have some kind of diasporic adjacency. So I often will talk to those people. Like those are my peers. And so I feel like our generation right now we're having to redefine things. Like I was at dinner yesterday and we were talking about different cultural traditions and practices and like what will we keep. Like when I got married, I had a traditional marriage. We did some of the things that my mom did, not all of them. And now it's up to me to kind of figure out when my daughter gets married, if she decides to get married, what were the things that I will insist must be done? And what are the things that I'll say, we don't really have to do that. So I feel like I'm just continually shaped by conversations with the woman who raised me, the African woman who raised me, and the people who I am doing life with and I'm sharing space with. Because I feel like it's ever changing. Even I feel like some of the ideas I had few years ago about what it meant to be a feminist, what it meant to be an African feminist is different now. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I feel like I'm continually learning and growing from other people.
That's a great question, a great answer. Thank you for that. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. It's Julie.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
It's been a pleasure to listen to you. So my name is Julie. My question is, when you moved to the States, and was there any particular experience that brought into awareness your difference?
When I was younger?
Yeah. Was there any particular incident that brought into awareness?
Other than your name?
It's like, how many incidents? Every incident. I'll share a few. So when I was in elementary school, my mom, I was one of those people who one of the things she did not know how to do and still does not really know how to do is hair. So I had a relaxer when I was 3. I have a lot of hair, in case you can't see.
Yeah.
I have a lot of hair. It's very, very thick. And she was working night shift and did not have the time. So she relaxed my hair. And she would do this style. I don't even know how to describe it, but she would thread my hair. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? So I would go to school, go to this American school in the suburbs with my hair threaded. And I distinctly remember a classmate calling me Medusa. And I was like, okay, well, so that was one of the things I will never, ever, ever forget that. And so that was a moment of difference. In middle school, that was elementary school. In middle school, I went to a private high school that my brothers and I all went to the same high school. We were on scholarship, but the tuition was $36,000 in the 2000s. So like kids were driving to school in Porsches. Yeah. Like it was like I didn't realize it then, but now I'm like, yo, people had money. Yeah. Woo. So, but yeah, that was not us. We were there on scholarship. And in 8th grade, I was feeling myself. I thought I was cute and I had a little boyfriend. And we dated for a week. And then until he came back and said that my parents said that we can't be together anymore. And I was like, why? And he was like, they just said we can't be together anymore. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, Mike. That's interesting. But Mike was a white Catholic boy who could not date a black girl, the one black girl in his class. So that was another moment that was really salient. I think especially I have a whole theory about black girls' experiences at private schools versus black boys' experiences at private schools. So very different. Black boys are often very popular. Black girls are often very hidden. That's
1,000% true in Nairobi if you're at international school. 1,000%. Another episode for another day, but could not agree more.
Okay, yeah, I want to talk more about that.
We'll talk about that.
So I think that was another moment that I was like, oh, I think especially because my mom like somehow found out and she was like, what's happening? I was like, nothing. And it didn't even happen for long enough for there to be anything to report back on. So it like felt like I was cool for a little bit, like I had a little boyfriend, and then his parents said that he couldn't be with the black girl from school. So those are, I think, 2 key moments like when I was really young that are coming to mind that I really, really felt different. But even when I was in elementary school, I went to a predominantly black school. So for me, like the difference there was that you're an immigrant and you're Nigerian. By the time I reached middle school and I was in a white environment, the difference was just that you're black. So that's also been an interesting element of my identity is like, are you black first? Are you Nigerian first? Are you an immigrant first? Are you an expat first? That's also an interesting language, immigrant versus expat. Some people here will be like, oh, you're an expat? I'm like, I'm an immigrant. What do you mean? I feel like that's a thing reserved not for people who look like me. But those are a couple of things that I distinctly remember. Medusa and Mike.
Medusa and Mike. Like I said, another episode right there. Actually, that could be a whole podcast. Medusa and Mike. Sally, thank you. And by the way, I just want to shout out Julie, who has been on my show, I think twice. You should go back in the archives and check out her episodes. We talk about healthy relationships. She's a psychologist. Nice. We talk about therapy, healthy sexual behaviors. So love you, Julie, and appreciate you. Thank you. Sally.
I just discovered Cohort Sisters as Lilly was talking about that.
Yeah.
And I'm Kenyan born, but raised in the States, predominantly white Minnesota.
Oh, boy.
And yeah. So I was thinking about when you talked about you're trying to get more people to do PhDs. Yeah. And I know that I stopped mine because I was so tired of having to fight like white spaces, right? It's that much harder, even though they're leaning on you for so much of the work, right? And so I'm wondering how Cohort Sisters is working people like the younger me to push through that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like, even listening to you when you were talking about how hard it was and you were exhausted, and then you got to come to Kenya right after. Like, I finished my second master's and had to go right to starting a program and like I never got that break. And I was I'm like, you said cross your legs, and I said, where? Right? So what are you doing? And like, what is the message? How does that work? Can I please have your number? Like, what is,
Absolutely. I love that you asked this question. And I'm so sorry that you were pushed out. Because it's not that you left, you were pushed out. You didn't have the support that you needed. And that's unfortunate. I'm really sorry about that. I'm sorry that I didn't start cohort systems early enough for you, but I was trying to heal, girl. I was trying to heal first. But what we do, one of the biggest, our core program is called the Sister Circle Mentorship Program. And kind of going back to this idea of Ubuntu. So it is a small group mentorship program because we really believe in community from a sisterhood perspective, but also when you do a doctoral program, you're supposed to be in a cohort. Was that your experience? You're in a cohort, you're supposed to be taking classes with these people, and oftentimes those people, you might not jive with them, right? Because they're from Minnesota. No shade, anyone's from Minnesota. But so we kind of recreate a cohort experience. We do it virtually. So we're able to engage people wherever they are in the world. Most of our scholars, 73 or 4% of our scholars are in the US. So we have a large Kenyan contingent, which always makes me happy when I see Kenyan names show up in our community. But we have a academic year-long mentorship program from September to May. We pair them with one another by discipline. Then we also pair them with a Black woman mentor in their discipline. So for example, folks who are in environmental sciences, someone's at the University of Minnesota, someone's at Princeton, someone's at FAMU, someone's at Spelman. And we pair all four of them together. They meet monthly, and they also meet with their mentor monthly, who also has a PhD in that discipline. So they're getting vertical mentorship, they're getting peer mentorship, and then we also provide them with additional resources and trainings, special workshops. And one of the low lift things is we have a platform. We have an app, a mobile app. It's free. Anyone can sign up and join the Cohort Sisters community, and people will just ask questions, right? And so like one of the most recent questions that came up, someone was reading, I'm not gonna remember the name of the book that they were reading. They were reading a book that was about how to decenter whiteness in your research. And they were like, the question was, have you ever experienced a situation in your PhD when you tried to do research and your advisor didn't think that it was legitimate because it was research that had to do with people of color? And so many people commented and poured in and, yes-anded. And just, it was a moment where whoever was dealing with that, one, didn't feel alone because there were a whole community and a body of people, myself included, who was told that my research wasn't important because it was too niche. And so just being able to be in community with folks who understand, right? It's so important to be around people and to be poured into by people who know what you're going through. And obviously all of our differences are unique in some ways, but to be an international student in Minnesota by yourself, right? Like someone else might not have been in Minnesota, but there might have been another Kenyan who was in Wisconsin or South Dakota who can commiserate with you, and you can find community with them. So that's really what Cohort Sisters is trying to do. We're not waiting on universities to get it together because it's gonna take a really long time, and it's gonna take a lot more of us before we can actually have parity in terms of faculty representation and student representation. So we're kind of crowdsourcing the mentorship and the community that we're supposed to be given by these programs that underemploy us and use our labor and give us a $15,000 stipend and call it a living wage, but that's another conversation. So we're really kind of building that community for people and kind of recreating what the doctoral experience is essentially for white men. Like a white man can go in a doctoral program, they'll have white male professors and they'll have white male classmates, and they won't have to figure out like who they can go and grab a beer with at the pub, right? Like that person exists, but we're recreating those kinds of communities for our scholars because they often don't have them. Yeah.
And what I love about your work is that by making that more equitable, safe resource for Black women, everybody benefits. When Black women thrive, everybody thrives. I mean, it's just, the data's there, both, what's it called? The data one is what? I'm forgetting, qualitative and quantitatively speaking, it's a benefit to everybody. So as we close out, I just want to say two things. Thank you for those brilliant questions. One, we just want to appreciate all of you. You know, Selam and Hello is a organic, homegrown, local product, and it's because of people like you who come and spend their time, their resources. You share the podcast. It means the world to me. In April, I left my full-time job, 25 years in development and hustling and working my side jobs to try and do this thing for real. And it is hard in these streets. I'm just listening to hers and I'm like, I can't really complain because she does more than me. But, you know, as many of you know my personal journey. And so I just want to appreciate you to say thank you. Selam and Hello persists because of all of you. And we would love to continue to hear from you how you think we can grow. Topic ideas. If you've got a great connection, if you know Barack Obama, you hear me, let your sister know because that's how we're growing. That's how we're reaching our goals. We really want to stay around. We want to stay on air. We want to stay in your feed. So please help us do that. We'd love for your support, your contacts, your partnership, organizations you think would be a good fit for us. You know, we will survive only because of you. So first, a deep appreciation, and then also a call to action. If you've got a way that we can grow and you've got some thoughts for us, some feedback, I'm an open door, open inbox. Would love to hear from you. You can talk to any of our team tonight. Joki, Becky, Rahma. We'd love to hear from you. And secondly, Joki, if you can help me out with the item. Ijeoma took time out of this weekend, changed her schedule to be with us today. So I just want to give you a small token of our appreciation. This blanket is an Ethiopian gabi. It is got 4 layers. My grandmother was a woman who never had an education, never learned to read or write or go to school. And she made gabis for a living. She spun the cotton with her own hand. And when she passed away, sadly, because of the communist regime, my parents were not able to go back and bury her. And the one thing we have left in our family is a gabi from her. This is not her gabi, but gabis mean a lot to us in our culture. They're a symbol of warmth. They're a symbol of sisterhood and of power of women. And so just an appreciation from our team. You know, we do not pay our guests. We just depend on their goodwill and generosity of spirit. So Ijeoma, on behalf of the entire Selam and Hello family, Asante Sana, we are because you are. So we love you and we thank you. Thank you so much.
Until then we say, hold on. I know it's hard, but baby, you just got to hold on.